One place inflation has really hit hard in the last 2 years or so is food. Going to the grocery store has become very expensive, and feeding the family has become quite a struggle. That's why in this episode of the podcast, I talked with Andy Ellwood, who has brought technology to bear to help people find the best deals on food through his AI platform. Well, my guest today is Andy Ellwood, the founder of Stretch, an AI platform reimagining how families navigate the grocery aisle. A serial entrepreneur who has built companies acquired by both Facebook and Google, Andy brings a rare combination of technical sophistication and consumer empathy to one of the most overlooked sources of financial stress in the average household, the weekly grocery trip. Throughout his career, Andy has built a global learning communities, purpose-driven tech startups, and coaching platforms, always with an eye towards creating more access and opportunity for everyday people. Andy's guiding philosophy, make room for many, reflects his belief that powerful tools shouldn't be reserved for the wealthy or tech savvy. With Stretch, he's working to put smarter AI-powered grocery decision making in the hands of families who need it most. Welcome to the show, Andy.
And thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So, to get started, obviously, and we were talking about this before we hit record, with inflation over the last few years, that trip to the grocery store hurts as much, sometimes if not more, than the trip to the gas station.
Yeah, grocery
And
is quickly becoming the second largest expense in a lot of people's homes after their home.
wow, yeah.
Which when it starts to jump your car, like you're spending more on groceries than you are your vehicle, more on groceries than you are your insurance. It's something's amiss.
hmm And what people are doing, from what I understand and what I've read and what you've written, that families are, they're struggling with inflation and the cost of food these days, but they're actually unintentionally overspending on
Yeah.
what they do. So how much are families actually overspending on food, and why is it so difficult to get a handle on it?
Yeah. So if the average American family spends somewhere between $700 and $800 a month on food, right? So we're starting to get up to almost $10,000 a year. And what we're seeing just by having pricing visibility within our
hmm
app, if you give me your shopping list, I'll show
hmm
you every store that's on the platform that's close by. People are able to save, upwards of $1,000 per year. And so almost, 10% easy. But then you
hmm
start to, see what happens when you go for sales, when you go for coupons, when you optimize your loyalty decisions. We're seeing upwards of 20%. So you start to look at some serious money simply by having the information to make that decision before you leave your house. And then you can
hmm
choose the store that's to the left or to the right and end up saving thousands of dollars a year just by using my free app.
hmm Well, you mentioned that how much families spend overall on food, both monthly and annually, but how much of that is actual overspending? I know what should that be if they're
Yeah.
savvy shoppers or they reach out to you for help from your app? What are they overspending? What should they be
Yeah.
spending?
Yeah. I mean, so, about 20% of your shopping list is not optimized.
hmm
And so if you think about everything that's on that list, there is a
hmm
better store this week for
hmm
your list than the one you probably were thinking you were going to go to.
hmm
And I think that that's where all of the information has existed for a long time, but it's never
hmm
been organized very well, right? It's
hmm
it's like everybody threw all the receipts from every grocery store, into a big swimming pool, and they said, yeah, the information's in there. If you can find it, you'll save money. And we're saying, with AI, that's exactly the type of data problem that AI is meant to solve, is the
hmm
ability for me to know, hey, like if I go to the store to my left, I can pay $100. If I go to the store to the right, I pay 120. So $20 savings right there. So it can be significant, especially over time.
Well, they're not spending strategically, and quite honestly, oftentimes they go to the store without a plan.
Yeah,
They don't have a
absolutely.
clear. If you don't have a plan and you don't know how, or have a clear idea or specific idea what you're going to buy, that's the first problem. And of course, the saying is, "Don't go to the grocery store hungry."
Exactly.
That doesn't work with a liquor store, but with a grocery store, don't go hungry. But yeah, I myself have done this. I go out with the list. I'm going up and down the aisles, and something reminds me of, oh, right, we need to get such and such, or, well,
Yeah.
why don't we get that for later, or whatever it
Yeah.
is that wasn't on your list.
Yeah.
So, kind of that lack of discipline can lead to overspending, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And having a list is just it's a really good checks and balance for what was your actual intent when you went to the
Mm-hmm.
store. The things that are on your list. These are the things that you actually intended to purchase. And
Mm-hmm.
probably if you're, somewhat savvy, like this is how much you have to spend on this week's grocery list. But it's
Mm-hmm.
so easy to go over. And like you said, the impulse purchases, that's what the marketers that are in charge of the store are building the entire layout of the store to maximize, right? There's a reason that the cookies are right next to the checkout.
The impulse buys.
Exactly.
Yeah, the little Sudoku magazines and the National Enquirer and People magazine and all of that and the candy and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
impulse buys.
It's all
So
it's all it's all there for you. But if you have a list and you're relatively disciplined, that I think that's the retailers don't, grocery stores don't always love it if you have a list, right? They
mhm.
want you to be wandering through the store looking to see what's new, if you have the time, and they will very gladly accept your overpaying for the pleasure of showing you something new.
That's why all the Disney parks have their shops right by the entrance. So they catch you on your way in and they catch you on your way out to get you to spend as much as possible. So it's bad
100%.
enough that you're impulse spending, but supermarkets are businesses and they've laid out their store in such a way that to increase buying.
Yeah, yeah. Which for what it's worth is what they should do, right? That is
No,
what their
no, yeah,
business
not
model
throwing
is.
shade.
But and I think this is the part that where we really come from with Stretch. We're building this entire platform shopper first,
Hmm.
right? So we're thinking about it. What would it look like if a shopper had a seat at the table when
Hmm.
making the business decisions around what to display, how to display it, what are prices, what are inventory. So far it's kind of been, similar to the medieval times where we all roll up to the same field on a certain day of the week and everybody's there with their wares and you
Hmm.
hope that they're charging you a fair price. But I'm not going to go to, three other stores to double check to see if that's a fair price. I'm just be like, well, that's probably about what it is. But I would never do that if I was buying a flight. I would never do that if I was buying a hotel. I'd never do that if I was buying a house, right? Zillow exists for a reason. And so being
Right.
able to have pricing visibility into what are my actual options is something that for me, I think is ridiculous that it doesn't already exist for the thing that we buy most frequently. And as we talked about, is a huge part of most household GDP.
Mm. People aren't that price sensitive. They don't look at price per se when it comes to the grocery store. They're aware that everything's expensive, and I think that they maybe just subconsciously accept the fact that they're just going to have to pay more. They don't do the price investigation, as you say, with a hotel room or a flight or any other purchase where you're spending, as you mentioned, thousands of dollars a year, but you don't do that price comparison.
Yeah. And it's never been possible before. But
Mm,
now, thanks to the advances in technology and a lot of the things that changed in the way that prices are shared and reported because of the pandemic,
mm,
because of the pandemic, local stores had to get very specific on what was available and what was the price at that store so that they could do curbside pickup, right? Curbside pickup, the fastest growing, new category inside of grocery. And the delivery companies got theirs, but then now the stores are like, hey, just swing by and we'll put it in the back of your car for you when you drive through. That exposed a lot of that pricing so that platforms like ours are able to bring it and let you know before you even go to the store what your choices are. Turning left or turning right can make all the difference.
yeah, not making those snap decisions while you're walking up and down the aisles. You're at
Exactly.
home putting the list together, and you don't have that immediacy that may cause you to make decisions without really thinking about price.
Yeah, and that's if you're shopping by yourself. I,
Mm.
I don't know about you, but I remember shopping with little ones, and
Ah,
there's a specific reason that the lower shelves are where all the candy is and where all the sugary cereals are.
yeah,
Those
you never
those
get out of the
kids
cereal aisle.
kids are a whole different type of impulse purchase.
Right. So we're talking about an app here that you've developed, Stretch,
Yeah.
and that's sort of going to be the overall discussion here or topic on saving money at the grocery store. So the question is, what was the moment that made you say to yourself, someone needs to build a real solution for this? And why were you the person to do it?
Yeah. So I grew up in Texas as the oldest of four kids, and my parents were always pretty open with me about the way that they managed the household. I saw my dad, balancing the checkbook, by hand every Sunday, afternoon after church. I knew what mom's budget was for groceries. But my mom
Hmm.
actually had a cookbook called Once a Month Cooking, and it was a series of recipes that if you knit them together, they used exactly everything that you bought when you went to the grocery store one time.
Wow.
And so being on a budget, with four kids, my mom was very industrious and figured out this kind of, a little bit of a nerdy math hack. And so I
Uh-huh.
always and we were homeschooled. I was homeschooled until I graduated college, or sorry,
Wow.
until I graduated high school. And so mom always included us, right? Like the grocery store was where we did a lot of our math growing up, right? Was figuring out like, all
Ah,
right, if we're making this many servings from this recipe, how much of these ingredients do we need, right? A lot of good early math and fractions. And so I always had a
and
good
percentages.
and percentages. Always had a great relationship with with food and with groceries. And then when I became a parent, I started looking at like, wait, is that actually how much things cost? Like I'm very very blessed that I didn't have to check prices as rigorously as a single person, or as rigorously when it's just me and my wife. But
Right.
once I became a parent and I started looking at like, wait, is that how much diapers cost? Is that how much formula costs? Is that how much everything else in the household costs? I was like, why can't I find this information easily to compare it across stores? I
Uh,
compare flights, I compare hotels, I compare homes, compare cars. I mean, GoodRx now I compare prescriptions, Gas Buddy, I can compare fuel. Like the thing that I buy the most frequently, why can't I do that? And so that was what sent me down the rabbit hole of thinking about what price comparison for grocery would look like. And
uh,
last summer I talked to over 1,000 shoppers across 47 states, and we wrote a white paper about it, 115 pages, which was a little long, but we wrote it for the industry as well as for kind of our investor thesis. And we found that 84% of people were afraid of what it was going to cost to feed their family next month,
uh,
because price of inflation is up 31% since the pandemic. And it's not just the low income families. It's not just the blue collar families. It's
uh,
middle income and starting to be increasingly upper income families that are saying, I'm not going to buy the things that I used to buy because a steak is now $64, right?
yeah.
I'd like even if I'm like dining on the nice side of the grocery store, like it's just ridiculous how much things cost. I'm going to have to cut back. And
Right.
so seeing that 84% of the shoppers that we spoke to had made cutback decisions last year, really it helped us inform that there was a time for a solution, and that with my background in big data and collective knowledge, maybe I
Hmm.
was the person to do it.
Hmm. Great. So you got going on this app. So walk us through how Stretch works. What actually happens? That you download the app to your phone, and what happens when a family actually puts in their grocery list?
Yeah, so you can put your grocery list in whatever way is most convenient for you. Some people type it out. A lot of people take photos of their last receipt or takes photos of their most recent paper list.
Mm.
We digitize it, and then when you click find a store, we go look at every store that's nearby you that carries everything that's on your list or similar products. And similar products is actually key because we had to be able to account for store brands and for regional brands. And so when you say peanut butter, there's probably 9 to 10 things inside of a store that could count as that intent for peanut butter, but it's a different 9 to 10 things inside of each store, right?
Right.
Maybe they all carry Jif, and maybe they all carry Skippy, but there's other health brands, other things like that. So Stretch actually gets to know your preferences, and then the kind of the aha moment for most people when they use Stretch is you get to see your list priced locally. So every store that's on the platform that's near you, you can
Uh,
see it's $110 here, it's $120 there, it's $180 there, and you can decide to which store you want to head to based on what your priorities are. Sometimes you want to go to the closest store and pay a little bit extra, or you're willing to drive a little bit further to save the most money. But we want to give you the choice so you can make the right thing, the right decision for you today.
do supermarkets really put online all of their pricing for all of their uh, products? I mean, they put that online where anybody can look it up.
Yeah. So what's really interesting is before the pandemic, the online price was different than the in-store price.
Uh-huh.
So if you wanted to buy cornflakes at Walmart, 2016, 2017, it was $5.99, and in the store it was $3.49.
Hmm.
But if you just were like, I don't really care, like whatever, just send it to me, right? There was a price for that convenience.
Right.
But once curbside pickup happened, once Instacart and Uber Eats and DoorDash happened, they had to get down to the specificity of that item at what price in the store. Now, those services then mark up the price. But if you go into the store, you can actually find that item at that price. And so that's where kind of this aha moment of the exposure of that information. And that was just a matter of organizing it and putting it in a way that could help shoppers.
So whereas before, if you were to look this stuff up online for the supermarket, there'd be one price, but that wouldn't match when you go to the stores,
That's right.
so your app
Exactly.
wouldn't work. But because of the
Exactly.
pandemic and the competition from places like DoorDash and Uber Eats, they had to level the playing field and the prices were the same. So you're able to get that in electronically. Are those how are those regularly updated? I mean, are they? Can you be sure that those are the current prices? Where you look it up on the app, it's one thing, but you get to the store and either that sale is over, or it's out of stock, or what? And that's another thing, whether it's in stock.
Yeah, yeah, it's a constantly moving target, but because again, for the curbside pickup and for the delivery, if you hit buy product, right, your expectation is that when you get there in an hour, that product's going to be there.
Right.
And so they've gotten much better at real-time inventory than they used to be. But
Mm.
there's still, some frustration, for people that are like, well, they were out of this, and it's like, well, I already paid for it. Like, what am I going to do about that? With Stretch, it's a little bit more on the informational side of things, right? We're not actually doing the transaction, at least not yet.
Mm.
One day in the future, we think we'll be able to, to partner with the stores to actually push our shopping list into their
Mm.
POS or their checkout system.
Mm.
But for right now, it's informational, but it's information that you can take action on.
Now, I would think it would make a difference when you uh, put your list together and when you actually go to the store. So, for example, a lot of stores, I think ShopRite does this, that's where we go nearby, their sales are Sunday to Saturday. So, if you make your list and everything on Saturday and
Yep,
then go on Sunday,
yep,
it's completely because it happens to be on sale or
yeah,
ShopRite's doing their can sale or whatever it is.
yep, yep.
So you have to. So do you recommend doing this the same day you go to the store?
Yeah. So what we've seen with the thousands of shoppers that are already using the app
Uh,
is most people start to build their list about 72 hours before they go to the store. So
uh,
72 to 24 hours is when you start to think, I'm going to go to the store Thursday, right? So
right,
it's Tuesday, and you start to add things. You ask your spouse, you ask your kids, like, hey, does anybody need anything? I'm going to the store, right?
right.
Then you build your list. Building the list can happen over a period of time, right? You kind of like that's the on your way to the store. But
Uh,
when in the app you click get recommendation,
uh,
we're seeing people actually go to the store shortly thereafter, right?
uh,
So building the list can happen over whatever period of time. But
right,
then on the day that you choose to go to the store, when you click get recommendation, those are the prices that you should expect to see when you get there.
right. So you mentioned about taking a picture of the list and things like that. Uh, I know my wife and I talk about building the list. That's our echo devices throughout the
Yeah,
house.
sure.
As it occurs to you, you just say, hey girl, add such and such to the shopping list,
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
and that's how it sort of builds. Does your app integrate with Amazon's Alexa software, Apple's reminders list? They now do shopping lists as well.
Yeah.
Do those talk to each other?
That is on our roadmap. Yeah, we're still a young company, but
Okay.
that's definitely something that we're seeing. My sister tells me all the time. She's like the thing that I remember. the time I most frequently am
Mm,
remembering to add something to the shopping list is when I've got my hands full of kids or my hands are, in the sink, right? I can't pull my phone out, And so
right.
being able to have voice and man, I don't know about you, but like I love voice everything, and voice is just getting that much better. Like I'm angry when I have to type something, So it's definitely on the roadmap and definitely something that we're thinking about.
Well, but you have to be careful sometimes. You never know when those devices are listening.
They're
Uh,
listening all the time. They're listening all the
and I'll tell you,
time.
my wife and I watch a show out of New Zealand called My Life is Murder.
Okay.
And the main character is named Alexa Crow. Well, every
Oh
time they
wow.
mention
Okay.
her name on the damn show, my Echo device is saying, uh, "What murder are you talking about?"
Wow. That's funny. That's
You
funny.
have to be careful. I have a device here in my office, but it's turned off. It's muted. I won't let it
Smart.
listen
Yeah, smart.
because you just never know. And if I need to talk, I'll turn it on. I'll do what
Yep.
I need to do, and then I turn it off. But
Smart.
it's good to see that's on your product roadmap. Now we're sitting here and recording this on May 5th,
Yeah.
and we expect this episode to be released July 10th. So be aware of where things are on the roadmap. Uh, do you have that information on your website where people can find out what the current features are and what you're planning?
Not what we're planning. We're still keeping that pretty close to the chest. A
Okay.
lot of people are starting to realize just how big of an opportunity this is. And so we're excited to be playing. We're playing with some of the big boys. Amazon has their Rufus, AI agent, and Walmart has Sparky, their AI agent. But we're building the shopper agent, the shopper assistant, and
Okay.
so we're very grateful to have large companies care what we're doing, and
Mhm.
that's a good place to be. It's a good place to be as a young company.
Yeah. If they can get this information, get them into their store.
Yeah,
They don't care what platform the customer uses, as long as they come to Walmart or Target
that's
or
exactly right. Yeah,
Aldi's or whatever it is.
yeah.
Uh,
The incentives are aligned.
so the only thing I've seen with platforms and giving sort of a development roadmap, I see where you don't necessarily want to tip your hand to the competition, but it can fend off a lot of uh, FAQs or questions that potential customers might have to
Yeah.
say, I wonder if oh, it doesn't have it. Oh man. But
Well,
hey, wait a minute, they're working on that.
yeah. Well, that's why I'm talking to you, Steve, so I can share some of this without, so
Sure.
so your listeners, can be in the know.
Right, exactly. Okay. So that's what it does. So can you share with us maybe a concrete story where Stretch made a meaningful difference in what a family spent? Could you give us some examples?
Yeah. There's one family that I know where the husband travels every other week for work.
Uh-huh.
So just pretty consistently, he's on the road every other week, and they've got three young kids at home.
Uh-huh.
And the mom, the wife, shared with me that she uses Stretch to determine each week whether she should order or whether she should go to the store,
Huh.
right? And when her husband's out of town, she's much more likely to order,
Uh-huh.
but she at least wants to know how much is that convenience going to cost me
Right.
to order this week, or is it worth dragging the three kids into the store with me because we're going to be able to save that extra $100. And so being able to just have the visibility
Mm-hmm.
of knowing, here's my trade-offs this week, right? Do I want, is it worth $80 of
Mm-hmm.
savings for me to go to the store? Or do I just pay the delivery fees and have it show up? And so, a lot of times, when her husband is in town, he can stay home with the kids and she can go in store and save the 80 to $100. But when he's out of town, sometimes you just got to pay, you just got to pay, but at least she knows what that's costing her.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think that's the type of role that we want to play in our shoppers' lives, is giving them agency. We want
Mm-hmm.
them to be able to make the decisions with all the information that they need, because Lord knows the grocery stores have all the information on us. Now it's time for us to have all the information on the grocery stores.
Yeah. Well, you actually make a good point in that story of sort of a niche market for your product, and that's single parents.
Yeah.
every other week, this woman you mentioned is a single parent. But there
100%.
are some of them that every week they're a single
Yep.
parent, and they
Yeah.
can that helps that single parent make a more informed decision on how
Yep.
much they're saving, whether they go out, whether it's worth it to drag the kids with them, or whether they
Yep.
should just order it.
Yeah, yeah. And when it's all said and done, like we have that type of buying information for most everything else we purchase, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the grocery industry, it's a very complicated industry, right? Because you're never buying just one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most other industries, you walk into a store and you walk out with one thing, or maybe if you're my wife, you walk into a store and you walk out with five things, but but it's not like you're walking out with 40 things, right? You go to the
Right.
grocery store, you're walking out with 20, 30, 40 different items. And so
Mm-hmm.
to be able to compare and contrast the best list across all of the different combinations, that's the reason that this opportunity still exists for our company to build and to solve this problem. But it's a very complex problem, and we're really excited to be seeing the progress and the traction that we already have around solving it for shoppers.
Mm-hmm. We talked earlier about how grocery stores are designed, how they lay out the goods in the store to make us spend more. And then you lay on top of that loyalty card pricing, confusing unit prices. I mean, now they're required by law to indicate a unit price so you can better compare pricing. But store brand, you mentioned that as well. How does Stretch help families cut through all of that, balance all the different contributing factors to come up with the best price?
Yeah, so if when you build your list, right, you're
Mm,
using pretty plain English, right? You're saying cereal, you're saying pasta, right? You're not saying Barilla rigatoni 16-ounce box, right?
right,
You're saying we need some pasta, right?
right.
And so building a list as opposed to building a cart was a pretty intentional decision that we made in building this product, is that we want people to just build their list the way that you normally would, right? And
Mm,
that gives us the freedom and the flexibility to optimize that list at each store based on things that we know would satisfy that intent, based on things that would satisfy what that item is on your shopping list.
mm,
And if in a future version, and probably not by July 10th, but shortly thereafter, we might have a button up across the top that says make this list cheaper, make this
mm,
list healthier, make this list more local, right? Being able to optimize for whatever is your priority, make this list closer, right?
mm,
There's a lot of different factors that go into why somebody would make the purchase decisions that they would. And so we want to make sure that we can be a resource for them on helping them find the store brands, helping them find the regional brands, helping them find the
mm.
healthier brands. Different households have different goals. And so we want to just be able to help them gather that information and put it in a place where they can make the decision that's right for them.
Mm. Well, you see that all the time in a lot of different shopping platforms. Amazon, for example, it's just a way of sorting the information. Do you
Yeah,
sort it by price low to high? Do you sort it by popularity? Do you sort it? And then they have all sorts of check boxes of filters you can do when you're looking for something. So having
exactly.
that built in makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and the important thing for with Stretch is that we're doing it across all retailers, not
Mm-hmm.
just at Amazon, not just at Walmart, right? When you put those filters on, we're helping you see what those filters look like across every grocery store that's in your area. And so you can make an informed decision. Oh, wow, if I'm really optimizing for best price, it might be this store. But if I'm optimizing this grocery list for regional or local,
Mm-hmm.
it might be this store. Or if I'm optimizing for convenience, it might be this store. And that's where those priorities change week over week, right?
Right.
You mentioned what day of the week do you go to the grocery store? Another story I've heard with a family down in Texas. On Tuesdays when the kids are in school, the household CEO, she can spend a little bit more time, drive a little bit further to go
Mm-hmm.
pick up more. Right. So Tuesdays, midday, if she has a slower day, she'll do the grocery shopping then. But then sometimes it's a smaller trip, right? It's not the big weekly trip. It's like, I need three things to make dinner tonight. But the kids are in the backseat of the car, so she doesn't really care about price. She wants to know which store is the closest that is gonna have the things I need in stock. And so being
Right.
able to like toggle between what your priorities are is what something that we're really excited about with Stretch.
Mhm. Now, how does the AI in Stretch personalize recommendations around a family's specific situation? You mentioned single parent, a lot of kids or whatever, dietary needs, the store near them, their budget. How does it customize?
Yeah. So the more that you use Stretch, the more context Stretch has about what's a priority for you, even down to the day of the week, right? That's one of the things we're building right now, is being able to understand, Steve usually shops on this day of the week, so we need to make sure that we have his prices ready for him when he's ready to go to the store. And so the
Mm,
more that you use the app, the more we understand when it comes to pasta, you prefer DiCecco as opposed to Barilla. When it comes to
mm,
cereal, Honey Nut Cheerios, Special K, or Raisin Bran are all acceptable answers, but Fruit Loops are not. Right?
mm,
Each time that you use it, it starts to build kind of that context layer around your household. And then what's great for us about that is that it starts to build trust. Right? The more that you use it, the more context it has, the more you can trust Stretch's recommendations. And so
mm,
that's really where, we see this as, like I said, shopper first. But, this is something that is great for the shopper and the rest of the industry might have to get used to, where the
mm,
shopper's making decisions not on Walmart.com or not in the aisles of Stop and Shop. They're making decisions in their kitchen outside of the view of the industry
uh-huh.
and being able to do what's right for them and make those decisions further upstream than they usually do.
Right. Well, that brings in, we're talking about AI and everything. That brings up the next question, which has to do with privacy. Everybody's concerned with what AI is going to do and how much privacy they're giving up. How do you think about user privacy when the platform, as you say, is learning so much about how a family shops and eats? Is that all kept on device?
So a huge part of our engineering and build out in the product was built around privacy. I have I have stood in front of a lot of grocery stores interviewing shoppers, and I'm like, hey, can I see your grocery list? And they're like, no, no, you cannot see my grocery list. I do not want to share my list with you because admittedly, what's on your list says a lot about you, right?
Right.
And so it's a huge part of what we're doing. Also, the grocery industry is historically very price sensitive. I'm sorry, privacy sensitive. And so, for every third party security audit that we go through with the stores that we're working with, we've had to make sure that we're up to snuff on that.
Right.
But it is something that we are working on building in ways that if you want to know why did we make this recommendation, we're going to be able to show you so that you have
Mm,
transparency in the way that your information was used in service of what decisions we are offering you. So it's a
mm,
big part of what we're building because for so many people technology has been extractive for far too long, right? If I heard the saying once that if the product's free, you are the product. And I think
right.
that people are sick of being used to make oligarchs richer, and they're wanting to have a little bit more agency and a little bit more control over their information, and that's really
Mm,
the way that we've engineered the foundations of what Stretch is
mm.
built for.
Well, we talked earlier about roadmaps and things that you're looking to add on. Uh, how do you see the future of this type of technology and your app and the grocery store shopping experience? What do you think it's going to look like 5 years from now? And what role is AI going to play in getting families there?
Yeah. So I think that when you think about where AI is going, where technology is going, the agentic revolution is the
Hmm.
thing that I'm paying a lot of attention to. One of the people on my team has 26 agents that work for him every day.
Hmm.
And his org chart looks very, very large, but it's actually just a lot of AI agents that are doing a lot of the smaller tasks, further down the chain from him.
Uh-huh.
But I think that when you think about what an agent represents, jokingly we said it's like Rosie from the Jetsons, right? Knows a lot
Uh-huh.
about you, knows how to serve you, knows how to be doing things while you're asleep. That future is one that we think a lot about. That an agent can be out there almost like a scout for you,
Hmm.
can be out there looking at prices, looking for coupons, looking for deals, because it goes before you. It knows enough about you that it can bring you things that you would have never found on your own. That's on the
Hmm.
shopper side agent. That's where we're focusing a lot of our business. But I mentioned Sparky and Rufus, the retailer side agent. In the future, I think that there's a very exciting future where your stretch agent is going to reach out to the retailer agents and is going to say, the Elwood family typically spends $200 to $300 a week on groceries. These are the brands that they love, and these are the products that are on their list this week that they're not brand loyal. What can you do for them? Because we've got this price from this retailer and this price from this retailer. Can you give us a better price because you're actually closer and they would like to go to your store, but
Mhm.
you're currently $50 more expensive. Could you cut that down a little bit? And you can actually imagine agent to agent negotiations on my behalf. And
Ah,
that used to be something that was reserved for people who could afford a travel agent or somebody who could afford to have somebody negotiate on their behalf. But with the cost of AI bringing that type of compute much further down low, I think that a
mhm,
lot of families will be able to have agents that work on their behalf to make their household more efficient and to
mhm,
be able to save them money. And I think that's a future that's really fun for us to think about being a big part of.
mhm. So, some people with their smartphones and everything, I've got screens and screens full of apps. The
Yeah.
last thing I need is another app. So, speaking to one of our listeners who isn't ready to try a new app yet, what are one or two things or three things uh, that are the highest level changes that they can make right now to reduce their grocery bill?
Yeah. So savings on a larger purchase are going to be higher, right?
Hmm.
So, the frequency with which you go to the store,
Hmm.
each time you go to the store, there's, as we mentioned earlier, there's the chance for impulse purchases and to go off script, right? So
Hmm.
don't tempt yourself, right? Try and
Hmm.
buy for as long as your storage, your refrigeration, will allow. Different people have different size refrigerators. I live in New York City. We have a very small refrigerator. Even though we like our apartment, the refrigerator is too small. So
Hmm.
we buy more frequently than we would prefer, but that's what our circumstances, kind of demand for us. So
Hmm.
try and buy for a whole week or 2 weeks if you can, because that's going to
Hmm.
allow you to have a little bit more discipline
Hmm.
in the savings, and you're not going to be tempted to go to the store quite as often and buy as many extra things as you want to. So that's one
Hmm.
thing. Two is just understanding like what things do you throw out, right? There's just so much food waste in America. If you throw out something that because it expired or it went bad because of the time that you've had it, just make a note of that, right? Did you need to buy that size? Could you have bought a smaller size? Is there something else that could have been, that you could have bought in that place? And then I think that the coupons and loyalty right now, loyalty cards still do have value. And I was speaking with a C-suite executive at a grocery store, huge grocery store. They told me that over 90% of the coupons that they publish go unclaimed.
Huh.
And so it is extra work, but there are savings opportunities out there. There's
Hmm.
apps like Flip or Ibotta or Fetch Rewards who maybe help you with some of the discoverability of those coupons. We're working, I will say this, on the roadmap, later this year to integrate coupons into Stretch. So we'll be joining the resources that you can leverage to find those coupons. But I
Hmm.
was blown away that 90% of the coupons that they put out go unclaimed, and it's just
Wow.
crazy that that there's a whole industry out there trying to let you save money, and it requires a little bit of work, but a lot of people still aren't doing the work. And I think that that's where we're again we want to come in and just be a convenience partner as much as we are a money saving partner.
Right. Okay. Well, I assume that your app is in the Apple App Store and the Amazon Store and anywhere where you get portable device software for
Yeah.
download.
Yes, it is. Yeah, both Apple and Android were available. Just go into search and type in Stretch
Hmm.
groceries, and you'll find us.
Now you have website as well. Was it
Yep,
stretchgroceries.com?
that's right. That's right. And,
Okay.
and the link for both apps is right there on the website as well.
Okay, great. And I'll certainly put that in the show notes as well so people can look that up. But I appreciate you coming on to the show. I know my wife and I use a shopping app just to keep the list and everything. And we used to, ShopRite had an app that you could use. We just stopped using it a long time ago, and I don't know that
Yeah.
it even re refreshes anymore. So that's a great thing to know and look into, especially single parents out there, busy people who need that AI and that extra help to save them money because maybe they don't have the time to clip the coupons and everything else, and that may be why a lot of them go unclaimed. And this is a way for them to save money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Uh,
We say all the time, don't grocery alone. That like Stretch is here to do it with you.
right. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Andy, and thanks for telling us about this great app.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Steve.
Hmm?